Hi, this is Ohfor. Let's create some zone spells. Alright, so it's time to talk about zone spells. Now, what are zone spells? Zone spells are like shout spells in that they originate from your character and then they affect a zone, typically around or in front of the character. I think it's probably going to be a little bit easier if we find one. So let's see, does Gale have one unlocked? No. Oh yeah, Thunderweave. So we can see here Thunderweave. When you cast it, there is a zone, as it is, in front of Gale where he can cast it, and then every target who's inside this zone will get hit by 2d8 thunder damage, unless they succeed a con save. So here we have, this is a con save, and this is the damage they're gonna get, and I do believe there's some pushback as well. Yeah, there is. So it will also push enemies back if they're hit by it. So that's a zone spell. And there are other zone spells. They're like, let's see, Burning Hands, which we don't have unlocked. That sort of does the same thing. We have, what else? Gust of Wind, which is kind of like Thunderweave, but without the damage. I think it only does the pushback and perhaps stuns the target. So let's take a closer look at how these are wired up in the game. As so often before, I think the easiest is going to be we just make our own version of Thunderwave. So we go to spell data and we press the little plus and we create a zone spell or zone table for zone spells. So we're going to toot Thunderwave, and then hopefully we can find the base Thunderwave up here that we can sort of work off. Okay, so now we have our own version, and the first thing I'll do is basically get rid of the saving throws. And you shouldn't do this necessarily. Oh yeah, that's not going to work. It's going to fill it in again. So I'll repeat the little trick we also did, I think, last video. I'll just create an empty line down here, and then I'll remove the parent. So now we have our own blank spell, and then we'll copy up the stuff we need. And then we can look at what all these different parameters mean. So here we have the saving throw. We'll not take that up, but we will take the deal damage and the force. And if it fails, target conditions, icon. It's a little bit of a hassle. Oh, okay. Actually, this is. I'll just point this out. The reason I can't. You see me doing copy. And then I can't paste it. And the reason I can't paste it is because this is a translated string. This is not something we've really talked about, but behind the scenes, this is a translated string. It resides in a special file, so that it can be Thunderwave in English, and then I have no idea what it would be in German or any of the other languages, but that's besides the point. This is why it will not allow me to just copy it up, because the key for this translation value is part of the shared mod, if you will, or base package, and therefore I can't just use it in here. I would need to basically make my own. So what I can do is I can copy, I'll do it with mouse, I can copy the text and I can paste that in, and that's fine, because then now a new translation key gets added to the tutorial mod, and that's fine. Anyway, tutorial Thunderweave, and the description we also leave. Okay. So what else do we have? Some tooltip damage, that's fine. Everything else we just copy up for now. And through the powers of video editing, I had that done in no time at all. It doesn't take long, it's just a little bit tedious to do it like this, but it's fine. One thing I just want to change is the use cost. I will take away, so it costs a level 1 spell slot to cast. I'm going to take that away. And the reason I want to do that is because it just makes our lives easier when testing, right? So we don't have to sort of deal with spell slot management and all kinds of stuff. So now we have Thunder Wave, and let's just see if that works as expected. So we'll get it unlocked for Gale. So copy that, go back in game, hello Gale, and we need add debug spell, zone to Thunder Wave. There we go. So now Gale has a cost-free, or a cost and action point, Thunder Wave he can cast as often as he likes. Fantastic. Now we can take a look at the parameters that make up this spell. So we go back in our stats editor, and let's just get rid of this one. Okay, so what do we have? We have a range and a base. I can pretty much figure out what range is. What I can't figure out is what base is. So why don't we, not a lot of this, if anything at all, is documented. So what I normally do when trying to figure out how stuff works is I just mess about with the parameters and see what changes. So let's try and set the range to 10. If this does what I think it does, we should have some more range on our Thunderwave spell, and we certainly do. Notice how it now extends much further away from Gale. So that's pretty powerful. Now, I normally don't do guessing games, but I would sort of say base is probably the width at the base for the area or the zone as it is that is affected by Thunderwave. So let's just take a look. Right, so now it's a very wide area at the feet of Gale, and it extends quite far into the distance. So we've just taken a very basic level 1 spell and probably made it insanely powerful because it has no saving throws. It will hit for 2d8, which is not a lot, but I mean in the early games this is pretty devastating, and the area of effect of the zone is pretty large. Okay, so range, base, we covered those. Angle, I'm not so sure angle. So angle makes sense for other types of zones. Hang on, just to explain that. We can see that this is a sort of square zone in front of Gale, so angle maybe doesn't make sense, but if we're dealing with a cone, I'll cover that in a bit, then the angle most likely determines the sort of width of the cone. Actually, it's going to become more clear. Let's return to that. I can try and set an angle. Why not? Let's set an angle even if it doesn't make sense. I don't think it will actually do anything here, but you never know. So we can set it to 90 and then see if anything changes in the game. No, and I didn't expect it to. Okay, so we'll return to that parameter at a later stage. Now, cycle conditions. This is no different than we did with the shout spells and the target spells, etc. Who can be targeted by this? Well, anybody who's an enemy and not dead. Okay. The spell animations will once again skip. Actually, been doing a little bit of research because it annoys me that I don't really fully understand how this works. So I'll do a video on that in not too long. But we can see here sort of the many different animation steps that goes into casting a spell. And this is about as far as I'll take it this episode. We'll get back to that. Okay. So the intent of the spell, damage, has a verbal component, has somatic component, is a spell, add fall damage, is harmful. That's all fine. We're not going to mess with that. We've covered that in other videos. Spell prepare cost, prepare effect, and damage type. So there is one thing I am looking for. Let me see if I can find it. Here, the shape. So the shape of the spell, this is what I talked about. So unfortunately there's no drop down here. You can't just basically select, whatever you like. I think the game offers, and we'll go exploring a little bit of what we have. The game offers like various shapes for the zone. One that I know of is cone. Let's try and set that. And I found this just by looking in the game. Look what's there, and then, sort of extrapolate from that. If we set it to cone, I'm expecting this to be a cone instead of a square. It may be. So it seems it's not quite that easy. Oh, actually, I think I know what this is. So it is a cone, but now the angle makes sense. So if we make a 60-degree cone, let's try that. There we go. So now we have a cone instead of a square coming up. So this is how Burning Hands is set up. It sort of projects the fire in a cone area in front of you. So here we go. And if we want to make it a wider cone, I think let's make it a 120. And then save that. So for cone, actually, I'm not entirely convinced that base makes sense, because now it sort of projects from the caster. But that's a story for a different day. Wow. So now we have a really wide cone for a zone spell. So obviously the animation doesn't really fit, because it still does a little square, and to change with that, we would need to change the VFX for the spell, and that's definitely beyond the scope of what I'm going to be covering here today. But in terms of the spell effect, it most definitely will affect the entire zone on a technical level. Okay, so let's put it back to a square. And then the angle no longer makes sense, so we'll get rid of that, just so we know we haven't been messing with this too much. So we save this. Alright, so now we're back to our square, and again, it's a very large square compared to the vanilla one, and the animation will stay the same in this area. But that's good enough for now. So what else can we do with our zone? Well, one thing I was thinking about is, why don't we, also just to demonstrate that it actually works the way we intend, why don't we add a little surface effect to it, like we did for the shout spell. So we can see here the spell success will deal damage for 2d8. Thunder magical, it will deal force. So force is not really damage, it's like a push force of a certain strength. And I'm guessing the higher the force, the bigger objects you can push. And then origin to target basically means push away. I'm sure there's a target to origin. Yeah, that will sort of, so kind of like how the, what's it called? The black hole works. Now, what I don't know is if we can just basically do, so let's do that. Ground, create. Oh, so we have create zone surface, and we have create zone and create surface. This is interesting. Let's see what happens. So create a surface, and the reason I don't know what diameter to set here, because I don't have any. It's the zone should determine that, so I'll just leave it empty. Let's see what happens. So we'll blank that out, 2 turns, comma water. And this might not work, but at least we'll learn something. So let's see. Yeah, why not? Yeah, it doesn't work. So we're gonna have to do, I say we, but I am going to have to do a little bit of research on this. But why don't we see, do we know an example of that in game? Yeah, cone of cold, right? It does something like that. So let's see if we can find cone of cold. Taking a wild guess here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so cone of cold, we'll learn this together. It's a level 5 evocation spell, that's fine. And it does ground, surface change to freeze, and surface change to douse, and remove status burning. So this is how ice normally works. That's interesting. And here we have some interesting surface lifetime, surface growth. So this is a zone spell in shared depth. So let's take a look at what it actually takes. So what we want is essentially the effect of freezing the ground, and they do this in spell properties. So not on spell success, but in spell properties. Okay. And once again, this may seem like I'm grasping at straws here, but this is how you learn, right? Take what's there, mess around with it, and see what happens. So we go to the spell properties, and actually for now, I'm just going to paste that in exactly as it is. We have some surface lifetime and some growth interval. Let's see what that was set to. In cone of cold, 0, 5, 10. Fine. 0, 5, 10. Let's just do the same. And let's see what happens. So we save that. And it's still not doing what we are sort of expecting. That is disappointing, but not entirely surprising. Let's see what else we have with cone of cold. Oh, so surface change, yeah. And this is where, so what I do in these situations is I go looking for differences between what we have and what's going on. So there's a description, that's fine, that doesn't really matter. So it is a cone with a range and an angle. So it could be that this is something specific to a cone that cannot be done with a square. There is that. So one way to find out is we find the shape of our thunder wave. We change that to a cone. Base no longer makes sense. 60. And let's just see if changing it to a cone spell actually makes it behave like cone of cold. I don't know if this is enough. We'll get to the bottom of this. No, it does not. Okay, so I will use the magic of video editing and figure out exactly what the difference is, and then get right back to you. Okay, so it turns out, and this actually makes a lot of sense. The thing is, the surface change to ice was working, and the problem was that there was no water. There was nothing to freeze. It's just this barren desert that we have here on this level. So now the surface is wet, and if we cast a spell, then the surface changes and all of the water freezes. So that is how the ice propagates. It will just keep freezing water from the center of origin. And we can cast it again, but of course it's already frozen, so it doesn't matter. We can create some more water. I cheated. I've set up a little create water spell for Gale that he can use once every turn. And we throw this around, and then we cast our Thunderwave, and there we go. Okay, so let's get back and see what else we have to mess around with. Alright, so yeah, that was the water spell I created. Never mind that. Let's take a look at the new columns that got into play here. So we have the surface type, the surface lifetime. Oh, stop that. There we go. This editor. Anyway, surface type, surface lifetime, surface growth step, and growth interval. Let's see, surface type. So the surface type, Sentinel seems to be just an area, an invisible area where something can actually happen. We have ice cloud, we have black tentacles, we have, all kinds of stuff going on here. And I'm guessing, let's try this. So we'll set water. And see what that actually does. So maybe it makes sense if I... Okay, so it creates water in that square we saw, and then it touches on the ice we already had over here, and then the whole thing freezes. And it freezes because we still have that surface change in place. So why don't we take that out? So forget about this. Now we just basically deal with the surface type, the lifetime, and grow. So we can see what's actually going on with our spell, and we're not bothered by all kinds of effects. I will move Gale over here. There we go. And then we can cast a spell. And there we go. It has now created a square of water in our zone. Okay? So let's see what else we have. We can create vines. Why not? And by now, I think we're all pretty confident what will happen. But never be confident. The game will surprise you in mysterious ways. But nevertheless, let's try. Here we go. twisting vines. And we can, of course, as before, we can change the surface area, we can make it larger, we can do whatever. So surface lifetime, I don't really know. But what I noticed that thunder was really high. So let's set it to 50 and leave the surface grow interval the same as it is now. And let's see what that does. I'll just get Gale over here. Come on, Gale. There we go. We're making a mess of this sandbox area. Yeah, so I think that it actually came out quicker. Let's set it to something really low. Let's set it to 1. And then we go back. Oh yeah, see? Now it grows much, much slower or in smaller intervals. Okay. And then let's set it to 50. I tend to put in some extreme numbers, either really low or really high. Well, not too high, but reasonably high or reasonably low. So I can clearly see what's actually affected by the changes I'm making. I definitely encourage you to do the same. Yeah, so, okay. So I do believe it's even slower now, so the interval seems to be a delay. It waits between each growth step. So if we set this to 1, I am expecting, if I'm right about this, then I am expecting it to grow a lot quicker. Once we get back here. Yeah, Gale, we don't have time for that. Growing your little garden here. The reason I'm avoiding it is I have no doubt it will slow me down if I walk into it. Okay, so here, yeah. So it's still not fast, but that's because there's 2 parameters in play here. So if we set the interval to low and we set the growth step to 10, like this, then it should grow 10 steps every interval, which is really low. So I'm expecting it to grow really quickly now. And let's see how that goes. Yeah. So that happened really, really quickly. So that's how we tune that. Now the lifetime, I know that surfaces have a lifetime of their own, like for instance with ice, eventually it will melt and turn into water. So I'm not really sure what this lifetime does. Let's guess that 0 means just use the default lifetime of the surface type. Let's set it to 1. And maybe this only stays for 1 round. Because I do believe that vines stay forever, or a really long time anyway. I mean, we can set them on fire. If we have a fire spell. So let's do that. So now we're burning all of this, and because I have a cheaty create water spell, there we go. So now we have steam instead. The ground mechanics in this game are really amazing. Okay, let me just remember we set a lifetime of 1, so let's see if it actually goes away after a round, so that should be 6 seconds. Oh, it does. Okay, cool. So we can set the lifetime to how many rounds it should be there, and if we set it at 0, it's going to be the default type for the surface type. Default type for the surface type. Yeah, there we go. So let's see what else we have. Have anything? Cloud kill 6. That sounds really nasty. Let's try and put that in. And so it does say cloud kill, but it doesn't actually show anything. I'm guessing there's probably some effects to go with it, but the zone is most definitely there. Let's see if we can get Gale to safety here. Oh my goodness. Nope. So Gale is in trouble. Did we set the... no, it lives there forever. That is a problem. So don't put in a cloud kill cloud. And that's the lesson learned here. I don't think I can actually make it go away now. So I'm going to do the Control R thing. Control R for reload. See if we can get Gale out of this mess. And we can. Now we're back to a normal world that doesn't have... Well, he's still down, but... that we can fix. And then reload again. So sometimes you get into these messy situations in the toolkit where... yeah, there we go. So now we're back and no more cloud kill. Let's I actually like the vines. That's kind of... I guess we can try Shadow Cursed Vines for one turn. And let's do something a little bit more reasonable. And there we go. And I'm not going to step into it. I definitely recommend, certainly not with the level 1 character. And I think that's pretty much it. The only thing left to do is if we find the Cone of Cold again, and this is something I'm going to leave as an exercise to you because I don't think we can take this much further. I urge you to explore the toolkit. So the shapes, I've only ever noticed cone and square. I'm not entirely sure that there are examples of anything else. So it's either going to be a square or it's going to be a cone. And I've not seen any examples of anything else. So we're in shared dev. Let's see if in shared, kind of like the oldest of the add-ons. So shape, square, cone. Yeah, I only know these two shapes. I have no idea how to add more shapes or how that will work. I'm sure there's a way somehow, but I simply don't know of anything. And if we look at spell data for Gustav, no, there's almost no spells in here. So square or cone, we already know how to create a circle because we did that with the shout spells, which was basically a circle with a diameter from the caster, or with the target spells it was a circle with, emanating from the target point. And now we have zone spells here with our little square that we can control the size of. We can change it to a cone, we can change the angle, and everything inside this zone will get affected by whatever surface we determine. And that, in a nutshell, is zone spells. I hope you find something fun to do with this and have fun modding.